Welcome, everybody. I'm Eva Dunn-Frobig. I'm Adventure Cycling's Short Trips Project Manager, and I've been at Adventure Cycling now for 6 years, working on events and outreach. Those programs include Bike Travel Weekend and Bike Your Park Day and our Ambassador program, which some of you might be familiar with, and we're going to be talking about them a little bit later because they fit in with the Short Trips initiative. I'm co-presenting today with Devin Cowens and Melinda Balshin, and they're going to introduce themselves to all of you. Devin, do you want to get started?
Sure, thanks. Hi everyone, my name is Devin Cowens, and I'm currently residing on the ancestral lands of the Muskogee Creek Nation, known today as Atlanta, Georgia. I'm an advocate for Black, Indigenous, and people of color in the cycling industry. I'm an event planner, and I manage a bikepacking group for women, trans, femme, and non-binary riders here in Atlanta. And I'm a member of the WTF Bike Explorers Gravel team. I've come to love bikepacking, and I've planned and coordinated a number of trips over the past couple of years. Melinda?
Thanks, Devin. It's so fun to see so many faces out there. As Eva said, I'm Melinda, and I, as well as Eva and the Adventure Cycling headquarters, are currently located on the ancestral lands of the Kootenai and Salish nations. And this land is also known as Missoula, Montana. I've been at Adventure Cycling for just about a year now, working with both our guided tours and doing route development for the Short Trips project. Prior to Adventure Cycling, I have extensive experience traveling by bicycle solo and self-supported, as well as leading guided bike tours, and specifically mentoring and coaching newer cyclists through organizations like Bike and Build and the Indiana University Student Foundation Little 500. Thanks. Okay, Eva, do you have something to say?
Yeah, so I just want to welcome everybody again. I think we probably had some more folks join us since we got started a couple minutes after the hour. I just want to start by saying we had a lot of interest in this event, so we're really excited that there's so many of you out there. Over 800 people RSVP'd to either attend this live event or to receive the event recording. So before we get started, just a couple housekeeping items. Please keep yourselves on mute. You will have an opportunity to unmute yourself at the end of the presentation and ask questions. You can also ask questions through the chat if you feel more comfortable doing that. Please don't click on any links in the chat unless they're being posted by myself, Devin, or Melinda. We just don't want anyone to click on any malicious links. We will be going for about 20 minutes is all for this presentation. We want to give you a quick overview of the Short Trips initiative, and then we will be taking questions. So if you cannot stay for the entire program, that's okay. Feel free to leave at any time. And we are recording the event. So we'll be sending out the recording next week, along with a survey that we hope you'll take the time to fill out to tell us what your personal interest is in the Short Trips initiative. And we really hope that you will be interested in participating in the initiative, because we're really excited about it. And we're relying on people like you who have a lot of knowledge about bike overnights and bicycle travel and enthusiasm, and you want to share that enthusiasm and passion with others to share, to encourage them and inspire them to go on a bike overnight or a short bicycle trip. So before we get into the Short Trips initiative, I'm going to start off by giving you a quick overview of what Adventure Cycling Association does. I'm sure many of you are familiar already, but we do a lot of different things. So I just want to make sure you all know about all of the things that we do related to bicycle travel or multi-day bicycle touring. Our mission is to inspire, empower, and connect people to travel by bike. We have over 50,000 members, and we are actually the largest cycling membership organization in North America. All of our members receive Adventure Cyclist magazine in the mail 9 times a year, and it has inspiring articles about traveling by bike and gear reviews and other great information about traveling by bicycle. We create bicycle routes and we make maps of those routes. We actually have 50,000 miles mapped as of now. And we're also helping create a different route network called the US Bicycle Route System. That's routes that are designated by states. We offer guided tours. We offer a variety of tours for people who want to ride with a group and have a trained tour leader lead them. And then we also have an online store called Cyclosource, where we sell our maps, and we also sell other bike travel gear and branded items. We do advocacy work to improve bicycle travel conditions. And we provide how-to resources to help people learn how to travel by bike. And we also do outreach to promote bicycle travel through events like Bike Travel Weekend, Bike Your Park Day, and our ambassador program, which I'm going to tell you more about later. So now I'm going to turn it over to Melinda, and she's going to get into the Short Trips Initiative.
So Adventure Cycling is working to create inclusive opportunities that encourage and support bicycle travel to both non-members and members, which lower barriers and increase accessibility. For the past 40 plus years, Adventure Cycling has gained a reputation as the North American bicycle travel experts. And a big piece of this initiative is sharing our resources and expertise to get more people traveling by bike. Specifically, we'll be developing and sharing free 2 to 5 day routes that are accessible from major metropolitan areas. We'll be providing educational resources about cycle touring, and we'll be working with on-the-ground ambassadors to develop local bike travel communities. This initiative does include a specific prioritization on reaching and engaging Black, Indigenous, and people of color riders. And throughout this presentation, you might notice that we're using the term BIPOC. This is an acronym that stands for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And now Devin's going to tell us just a little bit more about short trips.
I have to keep reminding myself to unmute. Thanks, Melinda. So as Melinda said, the Short Trips Initiative will focus on creating these short routes that are 2 to 5 days from metro areas. As most of you know, adventure cycling has traditionally focused on long distance routes that go through rural areas. And these long routes just often assume a lot about a person's situation regarding time, safety, access, and ability. So not everyone has time to ride their bikes across the country, even go on a week-long tour due to vacation dates, paid time off at salary jobs, etc. Regarding safety and access, rural areas and routes off the beaten path are often unsafe or uncomfortable for BIPOC riders. I personally don't feel safe biking around the backwoods of Georgia, given both potential discrimination for the color of my skin and the current political climate. Rider ability. Long distance routes that travel on roads with no shoulder or high traffic are also not accessible to families or folks who don't have as much experience traveling by bike or just going on bike rides. We're hoping that the Short Trips Initiative will appeal to a range of interest. Most folks can fit a 1 or 2 night adventure into their lives to a location that's right in your backyard, and it doesn't have to be to some far off place. You need a couple of days to go on a bicycle overnight. It can be any distance, any accommodation. You can camp, stay at a hotel, stay in a yurt, go solo or with friends, and it can be any type of terrain: road, dirt, bike trails, backcountry. Melinda?
Thanks, Devin. So we'll be working in-house and with input from local volunteers to develop about 30 vetted and recommended short routes in 2021, with the intention of creating even more in 2022 and beyond. These routes will be focused around metropolitan areas, and they will be accessible on our website for anyone to use, in addition to being used by ambassadors to lead local events. These routes will be designed as loops and/or out and backs with different overnight accommodation options and services listed, but without a defined itinerary, so that travelers can break up daily mileage in a way that's appropriate for them. As Devin mentioned, when we say short routes, we're talking about 2 to 5 day routes. And so these routes will range in distance from about 30 to 40 miles on the short end and up to maybe 250 miles on the long end. And we'll be prioritizing roads, trails, and traffic levels that are appropriate for newer bike travelers. And now Eva's going to tell us a little bit more about the Adventure Cycling Ambassador Program.
Great, thank you. Let's see, I just wanted to make sure I was unmuted. I guess I am. So yeah, so the ambassador program, I mentioned it before. We have had an ambassador program at Adventure Cycling Association for quite some time, but we've just recently made some changes to it. Previously, at least for the last decade or so, we've had a presentation that goes over how to go, or that goes over everything that adventure cycling does. and volunteers who wanted to give that presentation in their community to share all of the adventure cycling resources and everything that we do with others could use that presentation. And then we also gave them resources like Adventure Cyclist magazines that they could share at their event. So last year we decided to change it a little bit and provide a more educational focus. Also thinking about the fact that we want to make bicycle travel more accessible and introduce the idea of going on a one-night trip rather than making folks think that maybe they have to ride their bike across the country or do more of an epic ride, and let them know that they can just have an adventure in their backyard. And it doesn't have to be anything long or exotic. So the presentation went over how to go on a bike overnight, and we had lots of interest in potential ambassadors to give that presentation. But then of course the pandemic started in March, and many ambassadors had to cancel their in-person presentations in their community, but many did give online presentations, which were really successful. And so I'm sure we'll continue giving online presentations or encouraging ambassadors to give online presentations, but we're hoping that they can get back into their community soon as well. And we're going to take the ambassador program a step further with the Short Trips Initiative by creating more educational resources that will be available for free for ambassadors who are interested to use. And ambassadors, not just in the metro areas that we're focusing on, can use them, but ambassadors who live throughout the world will be welcome to use them. So one resource will be basically a bike overnight curriculum that ambassadors can use to teach people in their community how to go on a bike overnight. And then we'll also be creating a bike overnight event guide for ambassadors to use to take a group of people in their community on a bike overnight. So we're really excited about the possibilities of these resources that will encourage people like you, we hope, to inspire and teach other people how to travel by bike and or maybe participate in those events. And Bike Travel Weekend and Bike Your Park Day are going to also be a big part of the Short Trips Initiative. Many of you may be familiar with them, but if you're not familiar with Bike Travel Weekend, it's held during the first weekend in June, and Bike Your Park Day is held during the last weekend in September. And we encourage people to go on 1 or 2 night bike trips during these weekends. And Bike Your Park Day is focused on exploring parks and public lands during that weekend and going for a ride in your community. So the way it works is we encourage you to go on a local bike trip or bike ride to parks and public lands using the resources that we have available on our website. And some folks want to lead a ride. Some folks also volunteer to be a resource for others in their community and provide advice and route suggestions for people who have never tried traveling by bicycle. And then other folks volunteer to promote rides during Bike Travel Weekend and Bike Your Park Day and make sure their community is familiar with it. So we're going to continue holding these events and encourage our ambassadors who are participating in the Short Trips Initiative to lead overnights during these weekends. And that doesn't mean that they can't lead overnights at other times of the year, but these will be our big weekends for the Short Trips Initiative. And as you can see from this map here, this is from Bike Your Park Day, I believe a couple years ago. And there's typically about 1,000 rides that are led by volunteers, and all of the dots are showing all of the numbers of rides that are occurring in different parts of the country. And we're hoping that those numbers will be especially big in the metro areas as we engage with ambassadors and help them with the resources that they need to lead rides. But this just shows how these events can create connections in the community. Some of the rides are open to the public, so they're available for other people in the community to join them and to meet other people in their community and have that camaraderie with other folks that also love to travel by bike. So that's also a big goal of the Short Trips Initiative, is that we want you to meet other people who also love to travel by bike and inspire them and be able to help others. So what is the role of ambassadors? I kind of went over it already, but just to reiterate, there's lots of different roles that ambassadors can play. One is leading a bike overnight for a group of people in your community, teaching a bike travel clinic or a bike overnight clinic, helping promote the events, or just even you can participate in the events if you're not interested in being an ambassador. We may also have route ambassadors that will help maintain routes and make sure that their services along the routes are still open and available. So there's lots of different roles that you could play as an ambassador if you're interested in that. We also are wanting to partner with organizations and businesses in the metro areas, especially that also their missions overlap with what we're interested in doing and inspiring more people to go on a bike overnight. So, this can include a bike shop, a bike club, a meetup group, another business or organization that just has an interest in getting more people out riding bikes on a short trip. So, at least a one-night bike adventure. So now I'm going to hand it over to Devin, who's going to talk a little bit more about how we want to engage with ambassadors.
I love that I'm also as the Short Trips Initiative will take place in metro areas where adventure cycling doesn't have staffing, ambassadors will play a critical role in supporting this effort. ACA has a long history in appealing to an older crowd. Folks who are mostly retired can get months off at a time from work, and also identify as cis white men. As ACA continues to expand and create maps in metro areas, it's really essential to connect with folks in those areas who are experienced riders, experienced cyclists, but who also reflect the direction the organization is going, being intentional around representation and equity. For the Short Trips Initiative, we will recruit paid ambassadors, and as Melinda said, prioritizing BIPOC folks to do this, to assist with route development in these key metro areas, and I'm excited to be supporting this initiative. I recently led a Ride Leader pilot program for Bike Your Park Day and Bike Travel Weekend, and we connected with a number of experienced bike packers who identified as BIPOC and or women, trans, femme, or non-binary. They became ride leaders, and we gave them a stipend to take small groups on overnights and received a lot of great feedback. We'll be implementing a similar model for the ambassador program, including stipends and support our ride leaders, acknowledging the labor required and participating. Melinda will go into a little bit of detail around the metro areas.
Thanks, Devin. So for the first year of the Short Trips Initiative, we've selected 8 metro areas that we'll be specifically focusing on. And these are Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Austin, Minneapolis, Boston, Washington, D.C., and Atlanta. And to choose these areas, we basically crunched a lot of different numbers, looking at everything from demographic information, current cycling infrastructure, areas where adventure cycling already has a big presence and lots of contacts, as well as places where we have a lot of opportunities. And our goal is to continue expanding to more metro areas each year. And if you don't see your metro area on this list, it doesn't mean you can't be a part of this initiative. You can still be an ambassador, and our resources will be available to you. These are just the areas that we're going to be focusing our specific time and attention on. And Eva, I believe you have some more to say?
Yeah, we're getting close to the end of the presentation, and so thanks for hanging in there with us. But yeah, we just want to conclude with letting you know that we hope that you will be involved, and that we are sending out a survey next week that will ask you a few short questions to gauge your interest in being involved. This is a huge project, and we need you to be successful, and we need other people that you may know to be successful as well. So we hope that you'll share this with people in your communities who may be interested in some part of the initiative, whether it's being an ambassador or helping develop routes, or just promoting what we're doing in the different metro areas. So yeah, our goal is to create camaraderie and connection and getting more people to discover the transformative power of bicycle travel. And of course, our primary goal is also making bicycle travel more accessible to people and introducing them to the idea of going on a short bicycle trip. So finally, I also want to mention that if you are interested in contributing financially to the project, we do have a link on our website where you can donate, and I will share that in the chat. But our main focus today is to see how many of you out there are interested in being part of this initiative and just share our overall vision with you. And we do have a lot of details to figure out. So we are going to now take questions. We may not be able to answer all of those questions, but we'll do our best. And that's going to be part of the survey that we send out too, is getting ideas from you and gauging your interest. So with that, Melinda is going to manage the questions. And I want to thank you again for joining us.
Agreed. Thank you everyone for joining. We do have a couple questions in the chat that I'm going to throw out to Eva and Devin as well. So Sean asked if these trips are going to be limited to metropolitan areas, and can we say a bit more about what we mean by that? I can take this one. So when we talk about metro areas, these routes are going to be accessible from the metro areas, not necessarily a loop just in DC, but something that someone living in DC can reach from their home by bike and then either travel outside of DC or to somewhere a little bit more rural or to a park or on a trail. And so that's what we mean by from metro areas. And let's see, we have a couple people asking about liability. So if one of our volunteers performs the ambassador functions, is there any concern for liability?
Yeah, I can answer that. This is something that we do want to take a look at and make sure that we're doing all of our research, and because we don't want to make anybody liable for and be in a situation where they're not comfortable. Currently for Bike Travel Weekend and Bike Your Park Day, this does come up from time to time, and we did do some research when we started these events. But right now, what we recommend for Bike Travel Weekend and Bike Your Park Day is that if you do have concerns, many or all bike clubs and other organizations that already lead rides have liability insurance. And oftentimes you can partner with these groups and have your ride covered under their insurance. So that's one way to go about it. And we can't, we've had questions in the past specifically about waivers. That's something that we can't really help with because waiver laws are different in every state. But yeah, again, we don't have a lot of the details worked out, and we realize that that's going to be a concern for a lot of people, and we want to take it seriously. So thanks for that question.
Okay, so Jose is asking if you have to be a member to participate in any of the short trips.
You do not have to be a member.
Okay, let's see. Where did the next question go? Someone's asking what the next steps to get involved are.
The next steps are, we're going to be sending out a survey next week with the recording of this event, and we would love for you to just take a few minutes to fill out the survey. There'll be a series of questions on how we'll be asking you how you want to be involved, and then we'll be following up. So, and if you to be patient with us, because like I said, this is a huge project and we're just getting started. So we might not follow up with you right away, but we certainly will within the next few months. And we'll keep you informed as well with all of the developments of the Short Trips Initiative.
And Richard is asking that, given that the aim is to get as many people out riding as possible, will we be allowing other sites and cycling maps, etc., to publish our routes, or are we going to be keeping them just on the ACA site alone? And right now we're still kind of workshopping exactly what this will look like. If these routes are going to be available for free from our website, so whether you'll be able to post the actual route on your website or just a link to our free route on your website is something we're still working through. But the goal is to make these accessible and free. And someone's asking, will bikes be made available to people that don't have bikes?
We are not, that's another thing that we're not certain about yet, but we do, I know that that's definitely an accessibility issue. And so the thought is that we would love to partner with bike co-ops or other organizations, especially in the metro areas, that might be able to provide bikes to people who don't have them. And again, we need to work out some more details, but we would like to make that an option for folks, because we know not everybody has all the equipment and the bikes that they need to go on a bike overnight.
And Jim is asking, do we have a good overview document of this program that someone could use to present to a local organization that they have that our initiative would fit well with?
That's a great idea. Our thought was that we'll have this recording of this presentation that folks can share with others, but we will be developing some other sharing resources. So we'll definitely keep that in mind. That is something that we want to hear from you in the survey that we'll be following up with, is all of your ideas on how we can best share this and promote this in all of your communities.
Do we have a lead point person for each area, for example, specifically San Francisco, with whom locals can contact that want to work on this project?
Not yet, but that is part of the purpose of this event, is that we want to identify those people. So we'll be asking your interest in that in the survey.
And we have more folks asking about resources for biking and camping gear lending and borrowing.
Yeah, again, we want to partner with organizations that can help with that. We can't be in every metro area, and we don't have our own gear and bikes, but we want to make it as accessible as possible. So if there's any way we can partner with other organizations that already do that, then I think that would be a great way to accomplish that and make bike overnights accessible to more people.
Will these routes and rides be posted on the ACA website in the same way that Bike Your Park Day and Bike Travel Weekend routes have been shared? So some of the ambassadors, if they're leading routes off of the designed maps that we've made, those might be posted on our website when they're writing them. And the routes that we have developed will be on our website that will be able to be used by someone that wants to do their own trip.
And we will be sharing the events that will be held as well on our website.
And let's see, Stevens asks, well, he's already leading some bike trips in and around Minneapolis, and he's wondering what the first steps are for him to start with these short trips.
Definitely, if you could fill out the survey, that would be really helpful to let us know this information, so we have it all in one place and we can be really efficient with our information gathering. And again, we hope that you'll be patient with us, because I know everybody is so excited about this, but we haven't developed routes yet. So we don't have any routes to share with you, but our goal is to have some available in the next few months. So we will be getting started on this as quick as possible, but yes, the next step is to let us know how you can be involved in the survey.
Let's see. Oh, this is a great question from Jess. They're asking, they're interested in what kinds of support the Adventure Cycling Association is offering for ambassadors: financial, gear, coaching, education for how to responsibly travel through public and native lands, how to handle race-based conflict or tension while traveling, and how to reach a broad audience, etc.
These are all great ideas. And Devin mentioned that we would like to offer stipends to BIPOC ambassadors. And Devin, I don't know if you want to elaborate more on that or answer this individual's question.
As Eva's mentioned, we are working on developing more details of this. And as I envision it, the goal is to sort of provide ambassadors with a range of sort of getting everyone on the same page with a range of resources and kind of walking through what that looks like. And that will include a number of things, Jess, as you're highlighting here. So, you know, access to gear, local partners, that sort of thing. And the idea would be to have, while we're focusing on BIPOC ambassadors, any ambassadors who are engaged in this initiative, we will be offering training across these various areas so that folks are on the same page in terms of how to handle these overnights and kind of where they're going and some of those other issues. So my hope is that we'll have a sort of multifaceted training plan for once folks have come on, and then in each metro area having a sort of local person to sort of work with those folks on the ground who will be leading the overnight so that they're well equipped to participate in the initiative.
Thanks, Devin. John is asking, are this year's short trips limited to the 8 metro areas? And so right now, our goal is to have 2 to 4 trips, routes per metro area. And then depending on our resources we have available, we're also exploring having some short routes developed in other metro areas as well. And that's just kind of going to be something we're going to explore going forward, what resources we have to create more short trips than just outside of the metro areas. Let's see. Anne is asking, what would be requirements to be an ambassador or to lead? Bike safety, maintenance, CPR?
Yeah, that is still to be determined. We definitely want to make sure that everybody has the training and the confidence to lead these clinics and these overnight trips. So we don't want to put anybody in a situation where they don't feel comfortable, but we will definitely have some trainings, again, to be determined.
Teddy's asking, are there mileage thresholds for these rides, assuming it would be under 50 miles per day if introducing them? And that's correct. So it'll depend a little bit on the terrain and the road surface type, kind of what the mileage thresholds are. And optimally, we'll have overnight options a little more often, but for now we're looking at least every 35 to 40 miles, trying to have some sort of accommodation option. But again, it'll depend a little bit on the location and what the terrain looks like, how that'll be. Cindy's asking, are we particularly looking to recruit BIPOC and or LGBTQ T ambassadors to support the diversity goals of this program?
Devin, do you want to answer it or should I?
Oh, yes, sorry, I was reading the chat. Yes, I think we are recruiting that. I think, as I mentioned, there are some goals around representation and equity with a future goal of bringing equality to the cycling industry and the bike touring world. And so, yes, I think we will be prioritizing members of those communities. And so if you have folks in mind or, people that you would like to recommend, if you yourself are interested, as Eva said, definitely fill out that survey and we can be in touch afterwards to sort of coordinate what that would look like. So appreciate you asking that specifically.
Audrey's asking, if their city isn't mentioned, can they still participate in the same ways with the same support from Adventure Cycling?
We may not have routes available in your area, but the ambassador resources will be available to you and you will be supported in the same way. For instance, we'll still promote any events that you're holding on our website and give you the training that you need. And it's just that we can only create routes in certain metro areas because we just have limited time and resources to do that.
Dave is asking about when we think we might have some more details about things like maintaining routes. And that will be forthcoming just as we're getting more feedback from everyone about what their needs are and what our timing resources are internally. Someone is asking, will GPX files for these short routes be available? Yes, there will be. Bill's asking about the Adventure Cycling Bike Overnighter website. That still exists. And I'm not sure how or if we'll be tying that in with this initiative. David is asking, have we considered opening up route research to all areas and then crowdsource to build the master map? like science communities do. That is something we've been discussing. At least for the first year, we are going to be focusing a bit more on our main 8 metro areas, just because we're unsure how much feedback we're going to get, and we don't want to get too overwhelmed by having thousands and thousands of routes to review. And so that's something we're going to be exploring going forward. And we've also been considering in future years having a more organized route submission contest for folks to give us new routes that they have that they would like us to add to this initiative. Someone's asking, how will e-bikes be handled on this?
Do you want me to answer that, Melinda, or do you want to go ahead?
E-bikes, go for it. As long as you are somewhat aware of the distance that you can make it with your battery, and you can talk to, if you're going with a group, your trip leader who's organizing it, or look at the distance. As long as the distance is appropriate for you, go for it. Let's see. And what's our estimate for when local representatives will be identified?
Yeah, that's really hard to answer just because this is all new and we are not sure about how much time and resources we're going to be able to devote to this immediately. We are going to have more time and resources in the next few months. So I can't answer that, but I would say definitely in the next few months, our goal would be to identify ambassadors.
Gary is asking, the focus is clearly on overnighters. Will there be efforts and permissions or emphasis on single day out and back trips? So the Adventure Cycling Association, we specifically focus on bike travel, and we define bike travel as cycling that includes an overnight. And so the goal of this trip is going to be, or this initiative is going to be bike trips that involve an overnight, but that doesn't mean that local ambassadors and communities might not also be organizing events that are single day events, social events, day rides. But as far as the routes we're creating, they are going to be emphasized on more than one day of riding. Tom is asking if there's a public landing page for this effort.
There is not yet, but it is in the works.
Dave is asking, will the leader training be sort of an abbreviated version of the Adventure Cycling Tour Leader training? Great question.
Yes, I imagine that it will. We're working off of the resources that we already have to create the ambassador educational resources. So yes, but there will be a focus more on accessibility and ensuring that the resources include how to, making BIPOC cyclists and ambassadors feel comfortable going on short overnights. So there may be some additional training that we'll be adding to those resources, which I don't believe is part of the current educational courses that we offer, but I could be wrong because I'm not in the tours department.
Okay. Let's see. What are the next question? Someone is asking that we relist our metro areas. So those are Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Austin, Minneapolis, Boston, Washington, D.C., and Atlanta. And I'll go ahead and put those in the chat. Tyler's asking, are these trips expected to start in 2021, or is this planning more for the future? Any thoughts on that, Eva?
I think that, yes, we can plan. Well, definitely, we know that we're going to hold some form of bike travel weekend. We realize that we're still in a pandemic, but we were able to hold a combined bike travel weekend, Bike Your Park Day, in September of 2020. And it was very successful with some different guidelines to ride with people in your household and to be respectful of marginalized communities if you're riding through communities where Indigenous people live, and you know, sanitizing, wearing masks, things like that. So it just depends on where we are in the pandemic and how safe it is. But I think that there will be some form of bike travel weekend. At least I know that there will be some form of bike travel weekend because we were successful with it last fall. So that's our goal, is that we're really going to kick off this initiative with Bike Travel Weekend in June. And we hope to engage with ambassadors in those metro areas as a start to the Short Trips Initiative.
So Larry is asking how we're going to be promoting the Short Trips Initiative to folks outside of adventure cycling.
Yeah, I think one of the key components to this initiative is going to be relying on support of local partners, as well as the contacts that our ambassador leads have. I mean, Eva, you can fill in here, but I think it will be a sort of multifaceted effort for outreach and connecting with new networks and communities based on the relationships that we already have, but then also will build with ambassadors and wide leads.
Catherine's asking, are there ways that they can help other than filling out the survey?
Right now, I think that that is the best way to share your ideas and your interests. And we will, like I said, we will be following up and we will be keeping everybody informed. So somebody had asked previously about a landing page, and I forgot to mention that we will be making sure that we communicate with all of you regularly now that we know that you're interested in this. And then also the folks who fill out the survey. And we hope that you'll share that with others, and we'll be sharing any landing pages or any information along the way. So I don't think there's anything else that you can do at this moment, but we're so excited that you're enthusiastic and we cannot wait to work with you.
Audrey's asking, can the routes be gravel and or not too technical single track? Yes, the routes don't have to be only on the road. The bigger emphasis is that these routes are more beginner friendly and inclusive in areas that different demographics feel safe in, and accessible from the metro areas. Let's see. Jeff is asking, in addition to partnering with local bicycle advocacy groups, are there partnerships with organizations more aligned with BIPOC?
Absolutely. I think some of these advocacy groups also are run by BIPOC folks, but we are building a list of folks that we can connect with who are centering BIPOC in their organizations in those communities.
Steven's asking, would it help to forward the survey link to people in their cycling group? Of course, you can forward the link to the survey. We will be sharing a recording of this meeting and you can share that as well. I think that has me through all the questions in the chat. Is there anybody that has either any other questions that they want to put in the chat or they want to ask verbally?
I just want to say hi to all the people here that I know, and it's so exciting to see all of your chats and messages. So thanks for saying hello.
Don is asking, how would food and accommodation be done COVID safe?
We created some guidelines for Bike Travel Weekend and Bike Your Park Day in September 2020 that went over some of that. And then we do have some blogs on our website too about traveling by bike during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so there's a variety of ways to do it, like just riding completely self-contained is one way. And then making sure also that you're sanitizing. If you do have to go shopping at a grocery store or get takeout from a restaurant, there's curbside pickup, or just sending one person from your group in the business. And I don't know, Devin and Melinda, do you have anything else to add to that? I'm sure I'm forgetting other guidelines.
I know one of the I found with COVID bikepacking is unfortunately not super low waste. And so it's a lot of single use, both food items and plastics, which is not ideal. but is, I think in the time that we're experiencing is, makes sense. So that's been a big key for me.
Thanks, Devin.
Somebody asked to post the guideline. I am going to do that right now.
Okay, let's see. Dave is asking if there are going to be any winter options for fat bikes and camping. If we have ambassadors that have experience and are interested in doing something with that in the area, of course, especially with these communities ambassadors, if you have expertise in something that you want to share, we would love to have you share it. And let's see, someone's asking, it sounds as if the next tangible step is to reply to the survey. Is that correct? Yes, that is correct. David is asking if there is some place where volunteers could communicate offline. Is that possible? And I'm assuming like within the same metro area to collaborate.
We can give that some thought. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of offline. We currently have some Facebook groups for Bike Travel Weekend and Bike Your Park Day and our ambassadors, and they've been really great for communication. But offline, we'll have to think about that some more. That could be something that you add to the survey, that that's something you're interested in.
Okay, great. It looks like there aren't any more questions in the chat. Does anyone have more questions they want to add or anything they want to ask verbally?
This is Jeff Miller. Just given the comment about collaboration with folks in a metro area, could we add that to the survey question before it's sent out?
Add the question about collaboration. Oh, that is, yeah, that will be a question in the survey. Are you asking like recommendations for organizations that we could collaborate with?
I was thinking more about the person-to-person connections. So for instance, more than happy for people to have my contact information if there are like 10 other people in the Washington, D.C. area who want to collaborate and come up with some ideas together. But I also respect that you probably want to respect people's privacy. So maybe adding a question that says yes, no, to sharing my personal information with others in the metro area.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's actually something that Adventure Cycling has been talking about, is developing a way for people to communicate who are all interested in multi-day bike touring, who live in the same area. And that is not something we're focusing on necessarily with this initiative. But I think it will happen naturally just by folks attending events, social events, rides, and bike travel clinics that live in the same area. But we will definitely continue to give that some thought and see if that can be part of this initiative. We appreciate that feedback. And I know that that would be a really great thing, a great benefit for Adventure Cycling members to know who else in their area is also a member or who else is also interested in multi-day bike touring.
And we're getting some really good ideas in the chat of people giving us some ideas for what they would do. And I also have, I'm not going to share them out here because I want to workshop them, but some ideas of things we could do as well.
And I think we can also include in the survey an open-ended section where folks share some of these ideas and thoughts. And, I think we want to collect these as much as possible to make sure that the program is robust and thorough. And of course, we've done a lot of thinking already, but just to make sure that we're covering our bases. So we welcome these ideas in the survey as well. So just put that out there.
Stephen is asking, what is the opening and closing dates for the survey?
The opening date will be, I believe that the email is going out a week from today, or it may be next Friday, one of those days. So that'll be the opening date. And we can leave it open for several months if you want to share it with friends. We'll just plan on, we had not determined that yet, but we can be flexible about it. So if you want to share it with others and you think you need more time, we can leave that open.
Dave is asking, the survey is still in the process of being written, correct? Correct. We have a rough draft of what we want to ask, and then we're also using some of the questions you're asking right now to help steer us to what people are wanting to share information about and wanting to know. Janice is asking, can we restate the Facebook pages? They're a member of Adventure Cycling and they see the Bike Your Park Facebook page. Are there others?
I can share the links in the chat, but these are Facebook group pages, so they're different than our, the Adventure Cycling Facebook page, where we share information about what is going on, or articles that we think you might be interested in. Instead, these are groups, so you have to ask to join and then be approved, and they're typically so one of them is for people who participate in Bike Travel Weekend, the other is for people who participate in Bike Your Park Day, and then there's another for Adventure Cycling Association ambassadors. So I would be happy to share those links, and I welcome you to join them and start being part of these programs.
Okay, it looks like we've again reached the end of questions in the chat. So if anyone has anything else, I encourage you to either put it in the chat or you can ask it verbally.
And I'm still posting these Facebook groups, but I'll be done in just a minute.
Yeah, and thank you everybody for all the questions. Oh, it looks like I missed a question. I will go back and try to find that. It might take me just a second, but thank you for everybody for your questions and your recommendations. We really appreciate it because I think crowdsourcing ideas is one of the best ways to find them.
Hey, Melinda, it's Steve. I can tell you what my questions were.
That would be great. Thank you.
Are you dialoguing with potential ally groups like kind of the hiking community that's also looking at areas of interest, accommodations, kinds of issues where there might be some synergies with these other groups and what they're doing? Or at least that would be a suggestion that, the Appalachian Trail Council. I know we're not talking about biking on the Appalachian Trail, but when you look at kind of the communities along the trail, a lot of those communities would also be great focal points for short trips on bikes. And so you have a commonality of, well, where can we camp, or are there B&Bs or whatever that we could all be looking at?
Yeah, that's a great recommendation, Steve. So yeah, I would say through hiking and bike travel are cousins. And so reaching out to some of those organizations is a great idea. We have identified a handful of places we already know about, and I'm sure there are so many that we're not aware of. So that would be, if you have places in mind, a great thing to share with us in the survey, so we can go ahead and look into that.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Let's see. And a different Stephen is asking, they make some, they know how to make e-learning information for bike touring, and they would like to share it. So where could they send something like that?
I just dropped Eva's email in the chat for Stephen. Sorry, copied and pasted.
Thank you, Devin. Thank you, Stephen. I look forward to hearing more about that.
Dave is asking if we might be partnering with RTC on a mapping project for the Great American Rail Trail.
Well, I can try to take a stab at this one. I know that there are plans to work with the Great American Rail Trail and Rails to Trails to make it part of the US bicycle route system. And then also when we're creating these routes or working with folks like you to create these new routes for the Short Trips Initiative, we do want to use rail trails when possible because they're very accessible to people who haven't traveled by bike before. So in that way, we would definitely be working with Rails to Trails.
Okay, it looks like we have just a few minutes left in our allotted time. Does anyone have any other questions or comments or anything?
Yeah, I'll save myself typing here if that's all right. I just want to confirm an assumption, and then I have a statement. Was it true that you would be looking at lower group sizes for these tours that you're talking about because of COVID?
Eva, do you have an answer for that?
I think, yeah, as long as we're in a pandemic, that's definitely something to keep in mind. But really, like, as we're looking forward, it's really up to the person, the ambassador who's leading the ride, and what they're comfortable with. So we're open to however many people you would like to have join your event. At least for now, we haven't created specific guidelines on group size yet. So
for the longer term, you wouldn't want to be constrained, but in this season, this summer, it's going to have to be lower to be responsible. Now, what that brings to me is a concern on cost. I already am a little shy of the cost of the 12-person 3-liter trips or whatever. Maybe we can rely on one key leader and help within the group that you identify throughout the before and throughout the trip. I see you do that some on the self-cooking tours, so maybe that could be accentuated.
Are you talking about our guided tours or the ambassador-led overnight?
For cost, I was talking about the guided tours, which I'm a little shy. $200 a day.
Okay.
In these new tours, you have potentially less people, and maybe the responsibility could be shared to bring down the cost.
Yes, so yes, these ambassador-led tours are something separate from our guided tours. And so the cost, there's not necessarily going to be a cost that you have to pay a leader to join one of the short trip initiative tours. There's probably going to be some sort of, if everyone's staying at a campsite, you're going to want to pitch in your fair share to pay for food and pay for the campsite. But there's not necessarily, we're still figuring out what this looks like, but we're not necessarily planning on having, for example, a $1,000 fee to be able to join this tour. It's going to be something separate from our guided tours.
It's already what I'm hoping for then.
Yes, very accessible, very low cost, maybe even free is what we're talking about. So yeah, completely separate from our guided tours.
Very good. I've admired many, but I haven't joined one yet.
Okay, any other questions? It looks like we're right at 1.
Well, thank you, everybody. We're so excited about the interest and the turnout and all of your enthusiasm, and we can't wait to hear from you when we send out the survey next week. And like I said, we'll be in touch.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Looking forward to hearing even more ideas in the survey.
Thank you so much. We'll see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.